Okay, kids, so I want to talk to you about plant responses, and these are called tropisms. Plants responding to external stimuli. And here's like a list of a whole bunch of them here. Light is the obvious one. Who hasn't seen a plant like on a windowsill bend more towards the light? Hydro, water, of course, they're going to grow towards a water source. Gravity, this is one that is opposite for stems and roots. Stems obviously go against gravity. Roots go with gravity. Chemicals, certain chemicals that will stimulate them to germinate in a certain direction, besides water, of course, or even fertilize in a certain direction. Thigmo is touch. Maybe you've seen where plants like kind of wrap little tendrils around a solid surface, or you've touched a plant and the leaves have collapsed inward. And thermo is one not too many people talk about, but that's heat. Heat can also promote like a positive growth towards a heat source. Okay, so what causes these tropisms? A lot of times these tropisms are usually due to plant hormones and a signal transduction pathway. So we're going to show one here. Okay, and this is what we call etiolation and de-etiolation. Okay, etiolation is that growth in the dark. A lot of times you've seen a potato that was left in the dark, and that potato starts growing these little white roots off of it, right? And you see that and you eventually throw it out. Instead, I say take that potato now and put it in the sunlight. And after exposure to light, you'll see it start turning green, and it'll start producing leaves and then start watering. You'll get a whole big potato plant, just like Matt Damon did in The Martian when he planted all his potatoes on Mars and stuff. Okay. Yeah, a favorite movie of mine. Okay. Etiolation, again, that's for growing in the darkness. That's to help plants like push through the soil, start sprouting seeds as well. But de-etiolation is sometimes called the greening response. Okay. But what causes these plant responses? Well, in the case of etiolation, it's a good old signal transduction pathway, and that's what you have here. And we look signal transduction pathways. We want to look at what's the signal, how's it being received, how is it transducing, that old whisper down the lane thing, and what is the response? Well, when it comes to de-etiolation, the signal here is the light, okay, light. And I know we talk about signals a lot of times being substances, and then we call them ligands a lot of times. But in this case, light, it's actual action, and it's going intracellularly. So it's passing, there's no receptors in the membrane here. So the receptor is within the cytoplasm. We call it cytoplasmic or intracellularly. And this phytochrome that's inside is the receptor. Okay, so that's like a type of intracellular receptor. So then let's see what's involved in the signal transduction pathway. And notice this phytochrome is going to like signal the intake of calcium ions. That's one of those secondary messengers. Also, this phytochrome is going to signal cyclic GMP, another secondary messenger. So we see two secondary messengers being triggered here. Then a bunch of protein kinases are going to help. And they just write in protein kinase 1, protein kinase 2, but there is like a number of kinases that act here. And phosphatases. Phosphatases are often not represented. They're so underappreciated. But anyway, it's all about the kinases phosphorylating things, and that's how the signal travels on down till finally we get to the response, and the signal in this case ends up being a transcription factor. This is definitely a nuclear response. Good old dogma. Transcription and translation. DNA making RNA, which is making the protein. The protein in this case happens to be chlorophyll. Okay, starts making the chlorophyll, starts producing all the proteins that start greening them up and everything and making those chloroplasts come about. And that's the greening response. But there's more to plants than just etiolation and de-etiolation. So that's one thing. But what are the other plant hormones? So I have them all listed here, but let's try to take it one at a time. Okay, and we'll start with auxin. I think that's like sometimes like the most important one, if I could say that. Everything's important in some sort of way. But auxin is the one produced in the tips of plants, moves downwards, and causes upward growth. Okay, so when you see a plant growing tall, why does it want to grow tall? That's again a phototropism. It's trying to reach that light, but it's using this hormone that will go through a signal transduction pathway in those cells to make them elongate and grow upwards. Okay, now sun. Okay, when sun triggers the auxin will move away from the sun. And that's why we find those plants that, like, if the sun is on this side, the plant will start bending that way because the cells on the outskirts are getting elongated while the cells towards the sun are staying short. But why are they elongating on this side? Because the auxin is traveling over there. Yes, it's produced up in the tip, travels down, but then stays over to the side where the sun is not. So auxin likes to move away from the sun, but yet gravity it moves with. And, a lot of things move with gravity. Sometimes like our hips and our chins and stuff move with gravity too, downwards, okay? So auxin will move downwards, but here it has two different effects. A lot of times if you think about turning a plant to its side, why will the stem still grow up? Because those are the shoots or the stems. And when auxin is in a high concentration in a stem, the elongation will happen, okay, where it's highly concentrated, which is on the downside. So if it's on the downside, it gets long, it starts to get long and grows upwards and stays short on the top side. But in the roots, it's the opposite. When the concentration is strong, so like let's take a root now, and a root, if the concentration is strong at the bottom, that's where it grows longer, okay? Or actually, we should say, sorry, nix that. It grows longer at the top where there's very little. So roots work the opposite of what you would think auxin would do. So where there's more auxin, it actually stays short little cells. Where there's less auxin, then it grows longer. So shoots and roots grow differently in response to that auxin. Then there's the cytokinins. I always say cytokinins come in play when you want bushes to grow bushy in your yard. Okay, so say you have bushes in your yard. If you keep trimming the branches off those bushes, they're just going to grow tall, tall, tall. Okay, don't do that. If you want them to grow really bushy outwards, you got to trim them at the tops. Okay, because that's where the auxin is being produced. Once you trim off that auxin at the top, okay, it will cause lateral growth. It will cause branching growth to happen. And that's what the cytokinins do. Cytokinins mean cytokinesis, so they're promoting cell division, but it's moving outwards. Okay, and then we have gibberellins. Gibberellins, I say, like, are gibberish. They're all over the place. Okay, they're all over the place, and this is very important in seed germination because seeds like kind of need to break out, and it's like I'll break out anywhere. And gibberellins are going to cause that kind of all over growth. Gibberellins also are involved in and I whited out this word here, and then to put that back in, they're involved in the life cycles, also life cycles of plants too. So when a plant is needing to grow early on in its life, or when resources are very favorable, gibberellins might come into play and really get them grow. It's like, kind of like a fast growth. But gibberellins also, when resources are bad, or when the plant is kind of like in its dying phase, they get produced and causes the plant to like kind of collapse over and stuff. All right. Then there's the old ones, I say. Ethylene and ABA are the old ones. I always say when something's getting old, it's usually due to one of these two types of hormones. Ethylene is when fruit is getting old. It's getting ripened. Okay. Ethylene is the only one out of all of these, by the way, that's a gas that's actually secreted outside the cell, almost like that paracrine, autocrine stuff secreted outside the plant, and then comes back to either affect that or can affect something nearby. That's why I always say take a really ripe banana and put it next to your unripe avocados, and it'll help ripen it up. Okay. And then ABA, hibiscus, whatever it is called, I just call it ABA, okay, is when resources dwindle. This causes leaves to fall, causes the abscission layer, which is where the leaves like kind of break off of the branches and all to start forming. So I always say ABA's dead. Okay, ab is when the plant is definitely in its dying phases, and it wants to go. It wants to go into dormancy, we call it. Okay, and ab is going to trigger it to go into that. So that's your plant responses and some of the hormones. Hopefully, you looked at some of those worksheets and you can kind of figure out like how they're going with this. You know how like phototropism. So we had this worksheet, and you'll get a quick look at some of the answers here. Auxins at work here with phototropism. When auxin is produced at the tip, it moves down and away from the sun, causes the elongation of the cells on that side, so therefore it bends towards the sun. In this case, the tip is covered, so no auxin is being produced, so there's no upward growth. It doesn't matter where the sun is. If there's no auxin being produced, there's no growth happening here. And in these two, they kind of got cut off on your diagram, I think. But in these two, in this one, we're making a cut on this side, side A, and it's not disrupting the auxins on this way. So this will still bend. But this one over here, if we make a cut, the auxins can't all drift over here. You can't get all these. You might get some elongation, slight bending, but really you'll just get it growing tall still. Okay, so that was the phototropism. And the one with geotropism, that's where this graph shows that roots, see, when auxin gets high concentrated, stems will grow upwards, okay? High concentration, that's where the elongation happens. But notice when auxin's in high concentration, the roots, they're not going to grow. They want a low concentration in order for the roots to grow. So that's what this was kind of showing. Then we had the other worksheet, and I'm almost out of time with this video, but the other worksheet, and why I can't find it, here it is, the photoperiodism. This first side, don't worry so much about that. Just photoperiodism is the light and day. I actually like this side a little bit better, and I especially like this diagram up here. This diagram up at the top, and I hope you can see mine. Of course, you have yours. Notice a long day plant, a plant that will flower when the days are long. It's really not because the day is long. It's because it has a short night. Because look at this. If there's a short night here, the plant's flowering. But when there's a long night, there's no flowering. So you can't call them long day plants. We almost like to say these long day plants really should be called short night plants. Short night plants, because it's really that shortness of nighttime. Because you can see in this where the long night is interrupted, so you have a short night and a short night, but it's that short night, okay, that caused it to flower. And it's the opposite for the short day plants, okay? They call them short day plants, but they should be called long night plants, okay? Long night plants. Long night plants, look at this one. It's not blooming when the night is short. When the night is long, it blooms. Here again, we have two short periods. It's not blooming. So it really doesn't have anything to do with the day. It really has to do with, kind of how much sleep they're getting at night, so to speak. Okay, and that's what this whole side is going in. So that's it for plant responses, and I hope that was good for you guys.